Welcome to ProjectME, the podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Carter, the founder of ProjectME, multimillionaire entrepreneur, former TV newscaster, money-making expert, female empowerment speaker, and self-proclaimed office supply addict. My mission is to take the mystery out of making big money. Every week on ProjectME, the podcast, I'll share success tips, strategies, and stories from other entrepreneurs, experts, and millionaires, showing you exactly how you can achieve your most exceptional life. Now let's get to it. You are listening to ProjectME with Tiffany Carter, the podcast. Today we have our first three-way on the show on ProjectME. Conversation, that is. We are speaking to the dynamic duo, co-founders of Badassery Magazine and the podcast hosts of the popular Badassery Podcast, Samantha Parker and Kathy Rasmussen. I hope I said your last name correctly.
You absolutely did. It was perfect.
Yeah, I did something right today. So I'm so psyched to have you guys on, listeners. So you guys know I met these awesome ladies at a Chicago Badassery book launch event because they also have a book out. So I guess, Kathy, do you want to start by just letting us know a little bit about what is in the book and what people can get out of it?
Yes. So the book is called Badassery Style Community. It's a step-by-step guide to party planning your way to an ultra engaged community. And really, it's a workbook that you can write in. We wanted to make sure that it was really like hands-on, it's a tool that you can use for your business. But the reason why we created it is because when we built Badassery Magazine, we wanted it to be more than a magazine. We wanted it to be a community. So this last 2 years since we've been building Badassery Magazine, we've also been building our community alongside of it. And everything in the book is just step by step on how we created our community, particularly our Facebook group called We Are Badassery, and which is one of the one of the more highly engaged communities out there. We have a 75% activity rate on our Facebook group, which to me sounds unheard of, but that's how engaged our community is. And we just want to help everyone else create their communities too, because having a community that surrounds your business is essential in today's market.
So I guess I'll have Samantha answer this. What do you guys attribute this high engagement rate? Because part of my background is I have a high expertise in Facebook advertising and an engagement even in a paid ad space. And 75% is unheard of even when you're paying for it. So what do you think you guys are doing differently?
I think that we actually just give a shit, Like we actually care about the community. We show up in the community. You'll see a lot of community leaders or, Facebook group hosts, whatever you want to call them, who it's kind of like their assistant is just pumping out, regurgitated content. And it's like the same post every day. And you don't actually really see that person. They never comment on anything. It's kind of like, they just turn it over to somebody. And so I think the difference is made is like, that we actually show up in it and that we actually engage with people. And I try and remember what other people are doing, because those people have followed us and turned into, loyal fans. And it's, become more than that. It's like, we're all kind of rising together, they're all cheering us on. And so it's become like an actual sense of a community.
So how do you guys like plan that time luckily there's two of you, but you guys have a ton of work. You guys, have a book, you have a podcast, you have events. Like, how do you manage spending so much time nurturing that Facebook community? Because that takes a lot of hours.
Yeah. Well, we also have a magazine.
Oh, yeah. That too.
It really doesn't take that much time. And in the book, the book takes you step by step through exactly what we've done. And plus, the bigger it grows, the more it kind of starts to manage itself as well. So I don't spend as much time in it as I used to. But honestly, it's one of those things where I'm like, if the only thing I do every single day is show up, and by showing up, that means, showing my face somewhere. If that's all I do every single day, then that was a successful day. Because if I'm not showing up, then nobody can see me. My visibility is low. So really, it's just part of my marketing strategy and how I stay visible.
So, Kathy, when it comes to the Badassery Magazine, I know from my past career experience, magazines are a lot of work to put out. So they're usually, when people put them out and they're doing well, there is a underlying high passion drive to put that content out because of how much work is involved. So for you, what would you say is that labor of love that like must be burning in your soul to do that?
Well, definitely there is passion within it. I want to give you a little bit of a backstory. Like when Samantha came up with the idea for Badassery Magazine, when we decided to do it together as a partnership, we had no idea how to create a magazine. We didn't know what we were doing. And so, but we didn't even let that stop us. We didn't let not knowing how to, like the traditional how to create a magazine, stop us from putting one together. And we put out something that was the quickest, most basic version of like our ultimate dream of what the magazine could be like, just so we could get it out to market. I mean, this was seriously our MVP. I mean, it was really basic, stripped down, but we also tried to put in some elements that would make it so it wasn't so labor intensive on our end. So the number one thing about our magazine is completely community generated. So our community contributes all of the content to our magazine. We do some, like I've written several articles. Samantha's writes several articles. We write a letter for it every time. We do spotlights and things like that. But the whole sense of it is we wanted it to be this collaborative experience for our community. And so everyone in our community is welcome to contribute to the magazine, put articles in there. And that way we're not out hitting the pavement, being journalists, which we are not journalists, but we're listening to the voices of our community. And we are creating that experience for them to be able to showcase what they're experts in, to share their message, and to increase their visibility, which is really what we are all about, is helping each other rise up and embrace our rising badassery.
So this is a really unique magazine concept. Do you have, Samantha, have you guys like developed parameters around what people can submit? Otherwise, I could see, people submitting, things off topic or, doing heavy promotion of their business. Do you guys kind of have some boundaries around what they can submit?
We do. And there's a river running down my street right now. So just ignore all the
You're not taking a bath?
Yeah.
Because that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm not. I live in right outside of Vegas, right in the desert, and it flash floods. And so that's what it's doing. But I'm sure it'll end soon. Don't worry, guys. But we do have some guidelines around it. But mostly what we're looking for is just people who are willing to kind of present their voice with like a little bit of an edge to it, and they're willing to be a little badassery. We do allow people to promote, but not in the sense of they're just writing like one big long promotion. So if they share like value, helpful tips, something that like people read it and then they can take action on, that's what we're really looking for, is things that you read it and you're like, oh my gosh, I could do that, And our magazine too, because it's digital, is like you can click on it, you connect with all the people, and it's really interesting. And I think it's a great way for the community to grow and to show off what they do, because that's where the inspiration came from. As I was kind of tired of all the gatekeepers in the industry online, and it was like, oh, I'm in charge, I'm at the top. And if you somehow get your blog on my blog, then you'll be famous. And it was really just kind of pissing me off. And so I was like, what if we just leveled the playing field and we created a space where everybody was equal and everybody could share what they were doing? So that's our vision for Badassery, and that's what we've stuck with.
I love that. Now I'm going to contribute something. That's awesome, because you're curating a forum, and it's like a sisterhood of women helping women in a format that we already love to read. I mean, what girl doesn't love reading a magazine?
Exactly. And that's one of the premise of Badassery Magazine. It's collaboration over competition. It's about helping each other. And that's why we are also consider ourselves a promo positive community. So we want people to talk about their business, and we want people to share their expertise, and we want people to be able to promote their business in a way that doesn't feel sleazy or salesman-like or like they're just putting up billboards. We actually teach people a lot of good techniques to use in order to promote themselves in a way that's authentic and real versus just like, buy this now, act now before, 20 seconds and your time is up type of stuff.
I love that. And you guys all have everything in the show notes so you can access the magazine, the book, the podcast, all the things. So don't worry about it. You don't just pay attention to the episode and you guys can get all that good stuff later. So I want the audience to be able to hear how you two connected as friends, as co-founders, because I know the story, but it's cool how it happened. So I guess, Samantha, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, totally. And I think my shower has ended, so I'm all clean. No. So Kathy and I actually met at a conference through a mutual friend. And then Kathy was my very first client when I started out building a social media management business. And, there's a lot of like dynamic and stuff that went into that. But Kathy, I worked for her for a few months. And then at the time she was quitting her 9-to-5. And so as she was leaving her 9-to-5 and coming online, she's like, I can't really afford to pay you. And I was like, well, that's good because I'm a total shit show and I think you could help me. So, like she helped me organize a lot of my business systems and kind of put me into the business mindset. I'm one of those people, I refer to it as a cliff jumper a lot. If you've listened to our podcast, where I just jump off the cliff and Kathy's like, let's build a staircase and drink wine on the way down, So, it worked out really well. And I've learned so much from Kathy, but we've kind of developed a relationship in that sense, like I'm very good at showing up and Kathy's very good at putting together strategical operations. So, a business marriage was formed. And when I had the idea for Badassery Magazine, we'd become such good business friends online that I was just like, hey, what do you think of this idea? And she was like, oh, I want in. And that's kind of how it was born. 45 days later, we put out a magazine.
Oh,
and
wow.
then after that, that's when the brand came. That's when we started building a brand. And that's when we started seeing bigger, even where we're at this point this year is like, I don't even know if I could have envisioned that, in July of last year.
Yeah. How long, Kathy, would you say you guys could officially say this is when we really started pushing and promoting the Badassery brand? How long has it been?
Well, we're on our I am putting together our 27th issue right now. Let me see what that number is. Yes, issue number 27. So it's been a little over 2 years.
And how long would you say were the milestone markers where you started seeing, okay, we've got something here? Like, we knew we had something, but people are liking it and it's working. Where would you say those milestone markers were at?
For really, I think it's when we started launching the podcast and started talking to people outside of our industry that were influencers in our industry. So like, for example, when we got to interview Gary Vaynerchuk on our podcast, that was a huge milestone for both of us. And when we got to interview some of our favorite authors like Denise Duffield Thomas and Rebecca Campbell, those were huge milestones. And now it seems like it's getting a little bit more momentum. We recently did a segment for NowThis. We got to go to New York and go to their studio, and it was just like this complete surreal experience. But it was so great because, thousands and thousands and thousands of people got to hear our message. And when the message is spreading, those are the milestones for me. It's like, we want to empower women. We want to tell women that they can be successful right now, that they don't have to plan a moment in time in the future where their success is going to happen. They already have what they need. They just need to tap into that inner badassery and own it.
And Samantha, would you say that, did you guys go after these key, high influential, high volume type guests, or did they come to you guys? Did you have a PR strategy behind that?
Yeah, I mean, there was a PR strategy behind it too, but when, the question that we kept getting asked was like, how'd you guys land Gary Vaynerchuk? And I'm like, well, we worked our asses off 48 hours a day, if that's possible, for the last 2 years. And we built this amazing runway for Gary to come in on, So it's very like multifaceted. Like there was a PR strategy, but it was simply the publicist we were working at the time. She asked, he said yes. And it took several months of follow up. But the reason that Gary agreed to do it is because he's like, I checked out what you guys were doing. What you guys are doing is amazing. And he said something to me that I'll never forget. And I've quoted 500 million times. So it's like ingrained, in my brain. He said, what I like about you guys is you guys aren't just building the tallest building. You're not trying to tear other people's buildings down. And he's like, that's the way that you do business these days. And so for me, like, it's like, how did we get these people? How did they come to us? It's like, well, we opened up a space and we've been creating something that's bigger than us that, some of these entrepreneurs can see.
Well, Anne, you also said one of the key things is you fucking asked. Hello.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I keep saying that message to you guys, and I say it in every possible, form of communication is one of my biggest keys to being a 7-figure business owner is I ask a shit ton of questions. I ask, what's the worst that can happen? So Gary says no, or you never hear anything back. So you ask a few more times and then look what the upside is. It's all an upside, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we sent him a gift and we never heard back,
Right. And like, if you saw him in person, you're like, hey, Gary, like I sent you a gift. He'd be like, I get a lot of fucking gifts. Like I can see him saying that. He's like, but thanks. Yeah. I can totally see him being like that. Well, I attended their Chicago book launch event. And I have to say it was different than any other event I've attended. And I've attended quite a bit for my introverted self. It definitely had a community vibe. It had a really cool, non-competitive community vibe. And I'm fascinated with how you guys created this energy. I mean, how did you transition that from your online digital world to a physical real world? So I guess, Kathy, you go first. Since we're three-waying.
I know. Yeah. Oh, that's when the pause to see who's going to talk first. Really, my experience is in event planning. So like the actual like physical planning of the event was a no-brainer for me, but creating that community vibe is in fact, that's kind of what our book is about is we consider hosting a community, like a digital community or online community is exactly like throwing a party. You have to have that same level of hospitality to host your community as you do as hosting a really good party. And so in the book, we outline how everything relates together, like how you would decorate your community party by your branding, how you would send out the invitations and get people to come into your community, how you would decide what how you welcome people and make them feel at home and show them around and let them know where the bathroom is type of situation in a digital space, and like feed them, give them value, give them nourishment for their mind and for their soul, and make them feel welcome and want them coming back for more. And that whole metaphor is really how we manage both of our online and offline communities. And I think that providing that sense of like hospitality at a party and making sure that everyone is having a good time and everyone is really well taken care of, like that's what brings the community aspect into it.
And I will say that was my experience, given that, I'm a highly socialized introvert, but I don't go to too many events. I'm very selective because of that. And also because I've had a lot of negative experiences where it feels like awkward or that fake networky type conversation. And I didn't feel that way at your event. And I have to say, like, Samantha, you were for sure made me feel the most welcome, which I'm imagining that's something that you teach, is that if you're the host, you better be the most welcoming to people. Am I right?
Absolutely. I'm like, you better be the hostess with the mostest, right? But generally, I'm just a friendly person. And one thing, just like building the tallest building, like, I don't really care. It's not that I don't care. It's that I don't see other people as competition, It's like, I'm like, oh, we could learn from you. And I'm one of these people who I'm like, ooh, look what we're doing. Why don't you come with us? It's going to be a lot of fun, and that's just who I am, because I believe that like there's so much abundance in the world, and there's so much like we can all rise together, that like, I wanted to connect with you because I'm like, I knew I would learn something from you too, So it's like, I felt like I wanted to be in your presence. And that's how I feel about everybody. Like, no matter where they're at in their business, is like, I want to just like absorb kind of what's going on. And so I'm like, please come, and we talk about wine a lot. And sometimes, people have taken that the wrong way. And I'm like, no, it's not that we're just sitting around drinking wine a lot, but we love the aspect of, like what wine truly is meant to be. It's meant to be enjoyed like over a really nice meal, with family and friends, or with girlfriends on a weekend trip. And like, we've taken that kind of feeling and we've put it into our brand. So, we really are building a unique brand that I don't think you see anywhere else.
Well, I haven't. And I've really attended a lot of events like all over the world, given like, my past life as a TV journalist. You get invited to a lot, and it's usually for the other person or the host selfish reasons, which I don't blame them for that. But I didn't feel that way at your event. It definitely intrigued me because it felt different. I mean, if I were to ever host anything, like, I would want you guys to like consult on it, because that's how good I felt. And you guys, I went alone. I am a solo show a lot of times when I travel, and I felt very welcomed. I did not know one person in this room. So that was really cool. You guys do have an event coming up in Los Angeles. Kathy, do you want to tell us a little bit about that event?
Yes, it is on August 24th. And we are also celebrating the release of our book at this party. We want it to be really high vibe and fun. We're planning on having a DJ come, so there's dancing, a lot of networking and socializing, yes, and definitely some champagne and some snacks. But we are also going to have a program segment of the evening so that people can hear like our story, and they can hear more about our book. They can hear our other sponsors speaking at the event. We already have confirmed Choli Spicer from Femme Argent, a community there in Los Angeles, who will be speaking, and more to come. Definitely more speakers to be confirmed in this here short future. But it's really, again, we just want people, we want to celebrate together. We don't want to, have it be just the us show. It's not the Badassery show. It's about our community. And I think that the number one thing about having a community is it's not all about you. It's about the community. And so if you can keep that in mind when you're hosting your parties, when you're building your community and you're interacting with other people, then that's how you get that welcoming feeling that people feel when they come to a party.
Samantha, what would you say are some tips you could give people who get invited to these events or want to start attending these events, or maybe at your event in LA on August 24th, they want to attend? What are some tips you can give attendees so that they get the most out of events like this?
I think really it's come without expectations, but then also be ready to have fun. I think if you don't go into things with these expectations of this is how something's going to go, then you're disappointed, or, just come ready to have fun. One of the key things that we've done is I tend to get bored a lot. I don't know, this is a good and a bad personality trait. So Kathy and I, whenever we go to anything, we discuss all the things we didn't like about it. I'm like, oh my God, that speaker talked for so long, and, when you go to conferences, 95% of the time I am bored out of my mind. I get a few pieces of inspiration, I meet some cool people, but the rest of the time I am just bored shitless.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah. So what we've tried to do is incorporate the anti-boredom and the things that we love and the things that I know other people love. I think that people have gotten so stuck into this is how you do things. You show up, it's this routine, So if you can come expecting to, without expectations, but be ready to have fun, I think you'll really enjoy this event, because that's what it's meant to be. It's meant to be fun. So I think about Badassery too. Like we're like all about putting the fun back in your business. Because if it's not fun, like why the hell are you even doing it?
Well, yeah. And why the hell would you quit a, so to speak, stable job you were miserable at to then do something that you're not having fun with? That would be insanity, right?
Exactly. That's the exact definition of insanity.
It's like, oh, wait, I left the job I hated and now I've created an environment all myself that I also hate. Not good.
Yeah. And relationships are born in those moments when you're enjoying yourself, you know, and that includes dancing. Like when we hosted our Badassery retreat in Vegas this year, I don't know what happened, but like the kitchen peninsula just turned into like a dance party, like every time I turned around, and all the ladies were having so much fun dancing and connecting with each other. It was awesome. So, you know, dancing and enjoying yourself, that's when the inspiration comes. And that's when you have those big aha moments. And that's when you make really good relationships. It's not sitting at a professional networking meeting, you know, hoping someone passes you business. It's getting out there and connecting. And that's our big goal too, is just to connect women together, because we truly do believe that when they all work as one, they do rise up and they are stronger.
I do think this is the new and much improved way of doing business. You know, we're allowed to have fun and make a shit ton of money and like help each other out. I want to end with a question for each of you guys that I've been curious about and that I didn't already ask you, you know, when I was with you guys in person, but I'll start with you, Kathy. Do you have an experience throughout like your career previous to Badassery where you felt that you didn't feel that, like you said, collaboration over competition? You felt that like kind of negative vibey energy from other women and you wanted to do something about it?
Well, as I mentioned before, my experiences in event planning, and I was living in Salt Lake City at the time, and I was in the wedding industry. The wedding industry in Salt Lake City is very, you know, prevalent. Lots of people get married in Utah, as you can imagine. But it's also, so there's a lot of wedding professionals in Utah as well. And it is a cutthroat industry. Everyone is competing with everybody else. And it was so hard because you didn't know who your friends were. You didn't know, like we try to make strategic alliances with certain people, and then so-and-so would be stabbing you in the back because, you know, whatever you did, it was just really a hard industry to be in. And so it was a relief when I left that, because you just felt this, like your chest open up and this like weight off your shoulders. And I don't have to worry about someone, you know, getting worried that I'm trying to steal their bride away or whatever they're worried about. And so having this environment where it's a supportive network is so crucial to me, because that is where I thrive. I mean, I thrive when I get support from other people and not when I have to go out and do it and compete with other people. It just makes me more happy as a person.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Coming from, you know, the news business, I mean, I had people put baby powder on my like suit jacket, you know, you wear when you're like doing the news, like so that I couldn't get it out. Therefore, they had to fill in for me. And I had a lot of experiences with that like cutthroat, pure nastiness. And all of us would have news stories, but then the guys didn't do it though. It was the women that did it. And it was like they wanted the lead story because you got more camera time. So they were going to do anything to get it. And I relate to what you're saying, where it's like when I up and quit one day, and that was one of the reasons. It just was, it was stifling and suffocating. Samantha, do you have a story that you can share about an experience like that and why it motivated you to create Badassery?
Yeah, it sounds like you were in Mean Girls.
Oh, I didn't, and I just shared like a super PG version.
Isn't it crazy though? Because like if all the women in the network had decided to work together, they would have been more powerful than the men.
Totally.
Know? And it wouldn't even be like this, we have to take down the men type of situation. It would just be, you know, hey, we're helping each other, strengths and weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen this. Unfortunately, I think this is a thing that women have just, for some reason, somewhere, you know, they got competitive. I think it actually started with the Salem witch trials when they were having to like turn on each other for survival. But I did. I used to work, I worked in healthcare, and then I worked, for a huge chunk of my life in the floral industry. And I've always been a team player. So like when I see other people behind, I'm one of those people who's like, oh, here, let me help you. Let's see how we can get this done together. I would never leave work when someone else still had work type of mentality. And so people saw me because I was such like an outstanding employee, women, instead of being like, oh, that's cool, like she helps me get stuff done, they felt very threatened by me. And so, I was often very, very mean. I remember crying in the bathroom like so many times, and I'd be like, why are they being so mean to me? Especially after you thought these people were your friends. And so it definitely does happen. And I think that has been a lot of my driving force, is that I'm like, I'm not going to live in a world like that anymore. And that's not the world I live in. It's almost like I look back and it's like, was I rebirthed? And like, are we living in a different dimension? Because I couldn't even imagine that happening in my space, but also like the vibrations that I put out, I feel like attract the people that I'm looking for. And when you have high standards, the women around you, like they'll meet that, or they don't belong in your circle. So
that's a great point. I mean, because for sure, when I was in an environment that was so cutthroat, I felt like I was in that kind of animalistic survival mode. So I wasn't high vibe myself. I was trying to survive and protect myself. It wasn't until I got out of that environment where I started attracting, much more supportive, like female collaborations and friendships. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And I know there was a point after I left my last job when I quit, and I was like, I'm building something for myself. I seeked out a girl who'd worked there, and I was like, I'm sorry, I owe you an apology. And she's like, for what? You're the only one who was nice. And I was like, but I never did anything about what they were doing to you, So I just stood there and watched because I wanted to keep my job type of mentality. So we don't need to live like that. That's all.
Yeah, you're damn right we don't. So you guys, there is also a discount code for ProjectME listeners for the August 24th LA event. Did you guys say it was all upper or lowercase? I already forgot.
All uppercase.
Okay, it's all uppercase. Again, that'll also be in the show notes. And then if you are too lazy to access that, you can go on Instagram at ProjectME with Tiffany, and I will make sure personally that you guys get the information. I will also for sure be at the event. So how is that for like a real RSVP? I just committed to it. I already knew I was going, but I mean, I am really going. So you guys have to go. You're gonna get to meet some really cool people that these ladies attract. And like I said, for someone like myself, who's an introvert, who was attending solo and didn't know one person, I felt very welcomed the entire time I was there. And I'm someone where if I don't vibe it right away, I bounce. I leave. So I think you guys will really enjoy it, and I hope you come out. It was so nice chatting and having our first three-way with you guys.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Yes, thank you so much. This was fun.
Is there anything else that you guys wanted to share to the listeners? Any final thoughts, tips, anything?
No, I think if you're wanting to connect with us in any way, if you go to badasserymag.com, you can read the mag for free. You can join our community. You can find all the cool shit at badasserymag.com.
Okay, cool. Well, there you go, guys. And again, thanks for listening, and be sure to share in comments, or come over to Instagram, or go to Badassery Mag and leave comments on their Instagram, and let them know, what you liked about the episode, what you learned about it. Like, this is part of building the community where we actually talk to one another and we ask each other questions. We truly want to answer your questions. And I know both of these ladies would do the same, right, guys?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please write a 5-star review on iTunes. Not only will this make me super happy, but it will allow more listeners to find our special show. Simply help me help others.